Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Oh yeah, here I be, and welcome to you. It's the 8th of October, which is to say we're less than 30 days out from, oh God, help us, the election. It's also a Tuesday, which means my sister Susan is on board. Hi, Suze.
Hi.
Hi. So, yike. I got a question. There's so many. I got a question. So now we got Milton.
Yes.
Right? Hurricane. Now, I thought hurricanes got named in order. So how did we get from Helene H to Milton M? What happened to...
I think I said because we alternate between men's names and women's names, and we're on the H's on the women's, and we're on the M's on the men's.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah, I do. I understand.
Okay.
Every other one is given a male or a female. But
yeah, I mean, I do not know that to be true, to be clear, to live up to my reputation. But I do think that is the case.
Okay, so no, it is. I thought if anyone could quickly come up with a response, it'd be you. But you're admitting you don't know.
No, I made that up, but I think it's true.
Jesus. I mean, and without a blink. I mean, Jesus. Yes, unfriggin' believable.
Well, I convinced my late husband that Stanley Wall built the wall that Wall Street was named after. So I'm
okay. Well, listen, I defer to you in prevarication and quick prevarication. You might be right. You certainly that's a good one on the spur of the moment. And I can't think of anything else because what happened to IJKL?
No, I do think that's what it is, and I think it's more than just off the top of my head. I do think somewhere in the deep recesses of my brain there's actual knowledge.
Okay. Well,
I just don't know why I know it. I just think I know it.
Okay. Well, so that's what Susan says. I've been pondering it and coming up with nothing.
I want to know how Milton feels about having a hurricane named after him.
I know. It can't be.
I mean, on the list of things that you didn't think were going to come into your life, was having a hurricane that's going to be one of the worst on record named after you.
Well,
I mean, they say that every time before it hits, but
Yeah, but
I got people in that part of the country. It's scary at this point.
No, here's the thing. It is scary because you see things you haven't seen before. Not to mention Helene. Okay, Helene, we're still reeling. They're still finding bodies. Okay, and here comes Milton.
They're still hoping to find people alive.
Oh, fat chance. Well, that's the pessimist. But the thing is, you see meteorologists
crying. That guy.
He just called it. I mean, I saw the Dan Rather who got his big. He went from a local reporter to a national reporter because of hurricane coverage in Texas, his home state. And I saw him say, my God, to see a tropical storm turn into a monster Category 5 in a day is unheard of. So these storms, right, because of the incredible warmth of the water in the Gulf. And
the Gulf felt like a bathtub 20 years ago when we went,
Yeah.
And it's much, much, much warmer now. I mean, it must feel weird stepping in. It's like stepping into a hot bath.
Which is awful. That's not why you go into, an ocean. And here's the other thing that is just so scary. FEMA is obviously overwhelmed by Helene. And as of yesterday, they said they have just 9% of their personnel available to respond to another hurricane. Everybody is
And what is
already.
Mike Johnson doing, Lynn? What is Mike Johnson doing?
Mike Johnson?
Yeah, the head of the head of the House of Representatives.
He's praying?
Yeah, Speaker of the House. No, he's refusing to allow. He's refusing basically to call the Congress back to give FEMA more money, which, by the way, they need. He won't consider it until after the election, he says. And what's all over all the newspapers? What are you hearing out of all of the people on the ground's mouth? What are their signs posted of? Please, no rumors. Only the truth. Only first-hand information. There is so much. I mean, people. Here's the thing with all of the real horror in the world, right? I mean, you don't have to make up pictures of what's going on from Helene. They're there. And so what is that little girl with the little puppy, floating in a canoe crying as proof of how little Biden is doing? And it's all, that's a fake image. What the commentary is phony. They've got people believing there's no reason to ask for help. They're just going to give you $750. And I'm hearing those things come out of people's mouths that I know.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Frank Bruni did a piece today. He's
also, it's apparently the Jews' fault. Did you
of course,
that?
It's always the Jews' fault. Marjorie Taylor Greene is back to talking about certain people who need not be named controlling the weather. But Frank Bruni, writing about it as a North Carolinian, said, "I have seen politicking off human tragedy before, but seldom on this scale or with this stench." It is the stuff that Trump and Republicans are putting out there is going to get people killed. And it's going to get people keep people from getting help. The head of FEMA has said some of her employees are actually being threatened and they're frightened. It doesn't matter how many Republican governors or mayors or whatever, or sheriffs come out and say, "Hey, guys, stop it. Stop it. This isn't true. We're getting great help." It doesn't matter. They won't stop. Yeah. They're saying that Biden has stolen money and given it to Ukraine that was meant to help Americans.
Or to the border. And the interesting thing is the only one that did that was Trump. Took money from the FEMA emergency fund and put it into migrant issues on the border. He's the one that did it. Again,
projection.
But it's just of the most wild kind. Yeah, the reason he can think these things up and they're so horrible is because he's already done them.
That's right. By the way, Project 2025, the blueprint of the
policy handbook of the Trump administration.
That's right, of the future Trump administration, very clearly states they intend to gut FEMA and thoroughly disband the National Weather Service. I mean, you can't even make it up. You know, Kamala Harris called Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, yesterday, wanting to, coordinate with him and say what what you need, what we can do. He refused to take the call.
Yeah, right. So if Florida isn't going to get any help, it's because DeSantis won't pick up his phone.
Well, no, they'll get help anyway, and then the lies will start about how it isn't enough. I mean, it is. By the way, DeSantis is the one who pushed through. I think it was last year. A new. I don't know if it was a law exactly, but it enforced the removal of any mention of climate change from any law or regulation in the state of Florida.
Oh, because nobody's going to notice there. They used to have a hurricane of this kind of, terribleness about once every 30 years. Now they're happening every 2 weeks. Oh. Surely someone's noticing.
Yeah. He restructured a law that the state's energy policy would no longer address climate change and deleted any mention of climate change in all state laws. And he said that Florida rejects the designs of the left about, I guess, this hoax about these.
As they're all fleeing the state. I mean, how stupid is this, really? How stupid is it to refuse?
It seems like that. Did you see the latest polls that Trump is up by 15 points in Florida?
Yeah, but you know why? Everybody with a brain left, and the people that are going in agree. And let me tell you something else. I agree with Nate Silver, who said this morning, it doesn't matter how much you lose Florida by.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it. It was always gone. And that's really what's happening. People, LGBTQ people are leaving in droves. Parents, with children that want them to have a real education are leaving in droves. The people that are going in are of like-mindedness and don't see a reason. And they don't believe in climate change. And they don't see a reason not to live in Florida. I mean, I don't understand who can afford to live in Florida. How do you get a mortgage if you can't obtain insurance?
I don't understand that either. And to think that all these poor people...
It's the logistics of this that I don't get.
Yeah, and that people would continue to go down there and choose to throw in their future to a place that, if you're smart, you'd be evacuating, literally evacuating. Get the hell out of there. Get the hell out of those Gulf Coast areas. My God. I don't know. There was somebody who wrote a piece about how these storms are going to transform the South in terms of who's there and who isn't. And the sad thing, Susan, is it's not just people who are aware of reality.
People that can't afford to leave.
That is correct. So what it'll be is it's also has to do with the means. People who have the means to flee and people who don't. And so what you're going to have left are people who can't leave, and that will be overwhelmingly older people, particularly women who tend to live longer, and young people leaving, and that means a lower tax base, an eroding tax base for schools, infrastructure, and all the things to keep the poor people who are still there afloat. And given the fact that you have Republican politics in sway there, not that those poor people would be helped anyway. the outmigration is already occurring, as you noted.
Yeah. Well, it's occurring for a lot of reasons in Florida, but I have to think that the main reason is because it's becoming unaffordable for anybody.
Yeah.
And I mean that not only financially but emotionally. You can't be destroyed, continually and want to get up and do that again. You just go someplace else where you don't have to do that anymore.
They figure that over 3 million people have already out-migrated from coastal areas in the U.S., including in places like Staten Island. People they get it. We're idiots if we stay here. We're moving. Galveston, they've seen, you can see it. It's quantifiable. Over the next 30 years, they figure up to 8 million people will leave the areas that are most prone to flooding. Because if you can't get insurance for it, why would you stay? And given climate change. So, beyond belief.
Yeah.
And they throw in with the Republicans. Wow. I just despair. Hey, right before I went
It is hard to believe how open it is that, about 40% of this country is just willing to align themselves with the most despicable of ideas, thoughts, actions, and people. No biggie. And I, for the life of me, that's got to be the attraction, because there is absolutely no other payoff. It has got to be the satisfaction of this cult of hatred, which is just so depressing and scary.
My rabbi was quoted in the New York Times today, and there's a picture of him there. And this is what he said. Rabbi David Feldman stepped up to the pulpit of Temple Sinai and lamented, "Our American Jewish community cries out in despair. A person seeking the highest office in the land can utter the most base, crass, hate-filled language day in and day out." And on he went. Now, I got to tell you, used to be rabbis would not, that he took over from another rabbi, that rabbis would not get that political because they knew there were people there, not the majority, but people there who were Trump supporters. This guy obviously says, if you're a Trump supporter, who needs you? I'm saying what I'm saying.
Right.
And
check yourself.
Yeah. This whole article has people, they're interviewing people, all of whom I know, Jews in Pittsburgh, who are scared. Yeah. I'm so, I was awake at 5 o'clock this morning and I just couldn't stop thinking of it. There was a community-wide gathering last night in Squirrel Hill to note
for October 7,
for October 7, to note the horror. And you know who didn't bother coming, which surprised me?
The mayor?
The mayor, the county executive, these are two progressive Democrats, and our the congressperson who represents Squirrel Hill, Summer Lee. Not a one of them was there.
Well, you know who they don't stand with. Anti-Semitism, which I have always felt growing up in Green Bay, never went away. And I mean, I felt that in a way that Jews that lived in larger cities didn't feel.
But never like this.
Yeah,
not like this.
But never like this.
No,
then
this
it was just sort of this ignorance that you weren't so frightened by. But this is
scary.
People are out to hurt us.
Yeah. No, this is scary. This is scary. It's why I couldn't sleep last night. No, it's scary. Hey, Milton's been heard from. He says, with two dearly cherished ex-girlfriends living within the direct path of Milton, I can only hope that the storm wreaks less damage in its wake than the person Milton has.
Me too, Milton.
Milton, whatever did you do to those two women?
He said nothing as bad as what Milton is threatening.
Okay, yes, but they're dearly cherished. They're ex-girlfriends. I can only hope that the storm wreaks less damage in its wake than the person Milton has.
You left them in a miserable rumple.
Is it, Milton, what is it about your ex-girlfriends that they go to Florida to be in the path of hurricanes and live in a Republican, I don't know. Oh God. So there was this other, while the Republicans try to politicize this horror, there's been reporting showing that in North Carolina, for instance, that's a totally Republican-controlled state. The Republicans have been busily in the last few years, weakening all of the kinds of regulations that would make housing maybe a little more capable of dealing with hurricanes. There's an agency that's a nonprofit in Washington that puts out every 3 years model building codes. It's developed by engineers and architects, and most states adopt a version of those codes because they reflect the latest, what's available in design and safety. North Carolina? No, thank you. They have not updated their code for years, including refusing to add a requirement that new homes in flood zones be built at least 1 foot above the projected height of a major flood, which of course would put it underwater now. So these legislatures, because they're in the thrall of the developers, they go out of their way to make sure that there are no regulations standing in the way of constant development and keeping costs down for the developers. They even passed a law that limited local officials from accounting for sea level rise in their planning. I mean, it's like Florida saying that you cannot mention climate change. North Carolina, they were saying you cannot even take into consideration that these storms and the floods will be worse. And at the time, Stephen
you can take it into consideration. You are not required to.
Well, here, Stephen Colbert said this. So in other words, if your science gives you a result you don't like, you just pass a law saying the result is illegal. Problem solved. That's what they do.
Well, in a similar fashion, St. Norbert College here in Green Bay just dropped a new gender policy saying there's only two. And this there's a he and there's a she, and all that other stuff is out. And the student body, of course, they didn't tell the faculty, they didn't tell anybody. I mean, they got a gender studies program there. What are they going to study?
I can't imagine.
So the students were all out in force saying, we wouldn't have come here. You can't just, and they said basically the same thing. Just because you don't acknowledge their existence doesn't mean we aren't here.
Right. God help us, I don't know.
But if they can do it to human beings, they can certainly do it to science. And it's just, it's the arrogance of these people just, walking themselves backwards, and they're killing that which they profess to love. That institution is going to disappear pretty quickly. And Florida is too. And so is North Carolina if you don't take any steps to make it possible for you to stay.
Well, look who the Republicans in North Carolina have running to be their senator. That's the black Nazi.
Right.
I don't know how you can see the devolution of one of our major parties it's gone. I mean, it's gone. There was what's his name? I saw a former conservative Republican writing today that he had always avoided using the word fascist, but that he was finding it more difficult not to acknowledge what the Republican Party was becoming. That it was increasingly.
Well, the head of the prior head of the Florida GOP just endorsed Harris.
Yeah, boy.
There's a lot of people. I'm sort of surprised at the ones that haven't. Although Senator Danforth, may he continue to sink lower. I mean, have ever a family snatched, had their reputation trounced and refused to admit. Danforth, who gave us Clarence Thomas and Josh Hawley, refuses to vote to endorse Hawley this time. Will not endorse the Democrat. Will not endorse Harris, and states quite clearly that he wants to help form a new Republican Party, so he has to stay within it. In other words, he is choosing quite clearly and announcing to everyone, now I choose party over country.
That's what Romney has done too. Romney has not.
Well, I'm really horrified by Romney. He went the first step. Go ahead.
And Kasich in Ohio has said he will not. That's a Republican governor has said he will not vote for Donald Trump, but he didn't say, as far as I know, that he would vote for Kamala Harris. It's, if you want to see courage, you have to look to the women mostly. And you have to look to like Harris with Liz Cheney.
Did you listen to that speech in Ripon?
In Ripon. I mean, just amazing.
It was just a really wonderful speech, which is when I understood that she was running for president.
Well, God.
I mean, she's running for the Republican nomination of a reconstituted.
I don't know how you reconstitute a party. How do you reconstitute a party? Because the base has gone ape shit. And they will continue to put these lunatics in our Congress, in our state houses, in governors' positions. It's we, the people. I think Republicans, the few who think they can reclaim their party, are living in la la land. I really do.
Well, you have to be able to conceive of the thing.
Yes, you do.
To work toward it.
Yeah, you do. You know, speaking of whether or not it was Bill Kristol. That's who I was thinking that said,
Yeah.
do we call it fascist? Um, I do you see that Trump? I think this was maybe yesterday. I don't know. Who knows? You know, blatherings. Um, he actually said that this is full on Hitlerian fascism. He, of course, talked about the immigrants, and he said Harris has let 13,000 murderers into the country. So he doesn't even say immigrant anymore or illegals. He's now ratcheted it up to these are murderers. Okay. She's left 13,000 murderers into the country. And then he said this: we got a lot of bad genes in our country right now.
Yeah.
Now, what does that say? That is the kind of racist, that he's peeling them off.
That's concentration camp language.
Yeah, that is.
That's extermination talk language.
Yes, that is. That is. Un-effing believable. He also, in the same interview, went on to say that it would be very dangerous for anyone to admit that they were voting for Harris because they could get hurt. And I'm thinking of, that
arrest them.
I'm thinking of that,
again.
Jack Smith's brief that came out last weekend, and when he said there's quotes now that Trump actually said to Pence when he in the last hours trying to pressure him to refuse to certify the election. He said something like, hundreds of thousands of people are going to hate your guts. That's a threat. And in fact, like 24 hours later, right, there was, a noose in front of the Capitol and people screaming, hang Mike Pence. And we come back to what you said, Susan, that we're living right now in a country in which our fellow citizens, a goodly number, in fact, perhaps, who knows, more than we'd like to acknowledge, are willing to vote for him in such a squeaking. And there's a horrible article, a scary article about Michigan maybe going down because of all the Arab Americans that live there refusing to vote for Harris.
Well, have they looked at what Trump says about them?
Oh, it doesn't matter. No, aren't you? Here's what we're finding out: people don't think; they react. They're emotional beings. They don't think. We've got a caller here. Let's get him in. I think. Hello? Hello?
Hello, ladies. Ray here. How are you?
Oh, hi, Ray.
Good.
Hey, a couple things. I want to just express my disappointment in the local Democratic leadership and their inability to at least acknowledge the atrocity, right? Just acknowledge it.
Acknowledge the atrocity and
have
the
solidarity
pain
with your own people.
And the pain of their constituents. Unbelievable.
And where would the civil rights movement of the 60s, the Democratic Party through the decades, been without the Jewish community behind it?
Yeah,
huh?
Indeed. Well,
I mean, it's just it's embarrassing. But listen, I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask me anything you wanted, because I just this Sunday evacuated my wife out of Florida. She rents a place down there for parts of the year, and I had to bring her back right on the coast. So, it's right there, Sarasota, south of Tampa. So we left on Sunday, and it was just zombie misery down there, and it coming in again was just heartbreaking. But I had to get her out of there. I couldn't leave her there.
Yeah.
No.
But so
no, my family spent a lot of happy years in Sara on Longboat. I mean, you know that.
Well, we're right there in Lido, just
yeah. I know Lido Key. Yeah, that's where my in-laws had their condominium.
But
right,
you know,
and
here's what I want to know: what's with
St.
the
Armand's Circle? St. Armand's Circle is that beautiful.
Yeah, St. Armand's Key. Yeah.
So
they were just devastated.
Ray?
Oh no,
Ray! When are the people gonna pick up and leave? Your wife you guys gonna keep going down there?
Oh yeah. It's just too beautiful to abandon. They are. What I see is what's going to suffer most is going to be the older structures. They're just not going to be able to be sustained. We've been seeing the past decade or so, even more, maybe 2 decades, is that the new construction, which is more and more of it, is being built differently. Up and concrete, so that the people are not going to leave. They're just going to adjust the buildings and structures.
Right. Well, but it's very expensive, and they still have to be able to get insurance.
Yeah. How do you get flood insurance? How do you?
Well, you don't really.
No, and you move in.
You have to just mitigate. Yeah, a lot of the people who were on the coast in the past few years have moved inland, where less destruction, and the coast has become more and more rentals, condominiums, vacation spots. They're surrendering it to occasional usage rather than permanent usage.
Right.
But the poor people who are in the Sarasota proper, just living normal lives, working at the Publix supermarkets or whatever, they don't have the resources to pick up and move. And so it's a tragedy. It's really a tragedy. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to ask questions, or you apparently you're familiar with the area. It's been devastated. It's just been awful.
No, I have so many happy memories of the circle, shopping on the circle, eating on the circle. Right. Yeah, and the beautiful beaches there. And then we stayed over on Longboat for years and years and years. And Lynn would join us on occasion.
Yep.
When we went down and right after Helene, and there were streets that you couldn't see. There were swimming pools where the railing that goes into the swimming pool now just goes into sand because the swimming pools are full of sand. And they just were digging it out. And when we left Sunday, the roads were clear, the water was up, Wi-Fi worked, electricity, but it's just going to hit again.
But I think they're saying that this is going to be worse than Helene because it's they're expecting a direct hit, right? Unlike the likes of which Tampa has never seen.
Well, that I talked to the people down there. Now, I'm not an expert. I'm just telling you what they said. They would rather a direct hit or a southerly hit because the spin of the hurricane is counterclockwise. So if it hits north of you, you get the surge as the winds draw the water up into you. And there's nothing you can do about that. That's just water rising. That's what happened most recently in Sarasota. The water just rose. It wasn't the winds or the rains. It was just the rising of the Gulf.
Yeah.
If it hits south of you, it kind of sucks the water out, and it's not so bad. And they're prepared for a direct hit. The wind and rain is they're ready for that, but it can't prevent water rising up.
It's the surge. It's the surge.
It's the surge. Yeah, everything has storm windows, and they can pretty much hunker down for that. But once the water starts just rising, you just watch it. Nothing to do about it. So. But I love Florida, and I understand your argument about why would you go there? Why would you spend your money in such a state? But I don't agree with the logic behind it. I'm not prepared to surrender any part of this country just because the people are odious. Some of the people are odious.
All right.
Well, listen, you're right about that. And but I don't know.
I still won't.
For the time being, I'll find other ways.
Let me tell you
tell
you one little story, and then I'll let you go. I don't want to occupy you guys are on a rant, but last year, the wife and I wanted to consider Alabama, the coast of Alabama, because it's also beautiful and a little less violent storm-wise. So we took a road trip. We drove from Pittsburgh down to Savannah, stayed a while, and then we hit Florida, a few places that we hadn't been. Then we ended up in Alabama and then drove back through Tennessee. And the thing that I noticed most about that trip was how much I loved the American people that I ran into. Everyone. I didn't know about the politics. I didn't know. But they were just good, decent. I enjoyed the people.
Yeah.
This country is full of good people. Every state that I was in had good people in it.
Well, of course it is, but we've been encouraged to forget about that for the last several years.
But what do you do when those good people? Here's what I have trouble. I know what you're saying, but so many of those good people would put Donald Trump in the White House and destroy this country.
Many good people on our side do stupid things too. We have Gainey and Inammarato and Summer Lee and how I don't understand how we vote for them.
No, well, listen. The fact is, I read recently that the Democrats at least have refused to allow their loonies to overtake the party. That obviously is not the case with the Republicans.
Well, give it time. Give it time. I don't know. I find that we have been overtaken by our loonies. It depends on your definition of loony. But I'm not ready to surrender. Okay.
I'm not either.
I don't think we should.
I'm not either.
I think if there's a state I think the opposite is true. If I was king of the Democrats, I'd say, okay, all you Democrats in California, we got too many of you. Move to Florida.
Yeah.
Move to Wyoming.
No, I agree.
Move to Montana.
Well, no, I agree. I think we need to move into
I've been saying that.
red states and purple them up a little bit. I absolutely agree with you.
That is what we need to do.
One of the strategies they use is to make a state so unattractive to us that we leave. Well, they win.
Yeah. Either side. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I hear you.
But anyways, well, listen.
Thank you.
All right. Well,
I hope everything.
That's sort of like what it's like being a Jew in America these days. So we can't go anywhere either. We just stay here, and we're stubborn.
What I can't get is not that long ago. I have a friend who lost family in the Tree of Life, and I remember going to sit. What do you call it?
Shiva. Yeah.
Shiva, and going to memorial services, and the sadness, the sorrow. It was like a fog. You could touch it, right? It was so awful. And I thought for a moment the city had woken up and said, okay, these are our people. We can't have this. We can't have this. The rhetoric, the anti-Semitic rhetoric leads to violence. It always has, right?
Well, it's only gotten worse since
there we
Tree of
are.
Life. Yeah.
Hit students wearing Palestinian garb and queers for Palestine, and we've lost our minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
okay, Ray. All right. No, we're sorry. We were all going to have a nice day, and then this happened.
Yeah. Well, I'm due to go back Sunday. I'm supposed to fly back down there Sunday to assess things. So I'll keep you updated next week.
Please do. Well, I have a very good friend in Fort Myers, and she sat through all of them all by herself, and she's been fine. So we'll see.
Okay.
Well, good luck.
We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Bye. Bye. Thank you. Yeah. So I tracked my ballot, and it has been received. It is ready to be.
Oh, and Mother's has been received too.
Yeah.
I tracked hers.
And again, for those of you who maybe have mailed your ballots and don't know, you go to penn.votemail.us. And you can, and Milton, Brooklyn writes, Milton, every time I heard the news media say Milton, I thought of you. Well, okay. Hey, a few things. Right before we went on, the Washington Post broke a story. This comes from Bob Woodward. that in 2020, when the COVID epidemic was, just was terrorizing the world, when we were shut down. And do you know what Trump was in the White House? Do you know what he did?
What did he do? He threw a party.
No, he takes care of his. He sent COVID tests to Vladimir Putin for his personal use. You'll recall that the COVID tests were in short supply. Donald Trump sent, imagine.
Here, Vlad, picked up something for you.
Yeah, and Putin, Woodward reports, said to Trump, thank you, but do not let anyone know about this. It ain't gonna hurt me, but it would hurt you. Yeah. And did you watch the Kamala Harris on 60 Minutes last night? No.
I saw most of it, yes.
Okay. She did very, very, very well. And Trump did not help himself by standing him up. But I really thought she did really, really well.
No, I thought she did really well, too. I mean, why wouldn't she?
Well, I don't know. Everybody keeps saying she doesn't do interviews well. That's all she's doing now. She's doing interviews left, right, and center, and she's doing them very well.
I just want to say everybody has said everything about her forever. And everybody, whoever they are, has always been wrong. She's a perfectly capable, she's worked her way to where she's gotten. I mean, the one I like the most is that she slept her way to the top. I mean, she was elected to public office. With whom was she sleeping? The entire electorate?
God. No, she's supposedly, Willie Brown, who was and she very well might have slept with him. Who cares? She was a single woman.
Who cares?
Could sleep with whoever she wants.
She's a single woman. She can date whoever she wants.
That's
correct. Including Montel Williams.
God. Here's the other thing. The business section of the New York Times today. Trump, I talked yesterday about the fact that Oklahoma is mandating that Bibles have to be in every classroom, and now the specifications for the kind of Bible that has to be there have come out, and the only Bible that fits the bill is Trump's. So
yeah, at $60 and no discount for the educational system.
He gets a cut of every Bible, and they're $60 a piece, which is ridiculous since Bibles can be had for next to nothing. In fact, they can be had for nothing because you can download them. So the grifter and his pals keep doing what they do. So the business section of the Times has this story. Chase Hero is an online salesman who proudly calls himself a dirtbag of the internet. He's able to sell anything to anyone. Zachary Folkman ran a company called Date Hotter Girls, offering advice under a pseudonym on how to pick up women at bars. For the last decade or so, these two have been serial entrepreneurs, leaving behind a trail of lawsuits. Oh, shut the fuck up. Excuse me.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry. Why is it all of a sudden somebody has to call me always during the show? Because if I turn it off, I'll forget I turned it off. Then I won't know it's on. I mean, not on. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Yeah, I do.
So for the past decade or so, these two fine, upstanding men have been serial entrepreneurs, leaving behind a trail of lawsuits and unpaid debt and taxes. And now they are former President Donald Trump's business partners.
Oh, of course they are.
Of course. I mean, did we not just give you the? I mean, excuse me. Who else would be drawn to these two? They are the forces behind World Liberty Financial. That's a cryptocurrency venture that Trump and his sons announced last month, declaring that this new enterprise would help turn the U.S. into the crypto capital of the world. So he's teamed up with these two fraudsters. God. The Times writes also, other crypto experts have expressed doubt that this will be a success. In fact, even alarm about the business. Yeah, so he never ceases. He's a very, very busy thief. Hang on. Mary has written something. I'd like to get it in. We have friends in St. Pete, and the last time we were there, someone said 400 people were moving in every day. From the looks of things, it's mostly young people. What? I hope they have the means to move away. Well, what the hell are they moving in? Of course, my friends are looking at job opportunities elsewhere so they can move. They're gay men with a child, so it's not like they can move just anywhere. St. Petersburg is blue. Well, they should get the hell out of the state. I wouldn't be gay parents in that state. And she says, secondly, my husband is a finance guy. In one of the online publications he reads, there was a letter from someone wanting to know if he should invest in Florida land because it's really cheap now. There's a genius.
Well, anyone that bought, I feel sorry for all the elderly, probably mostly folks that inhabit all of those older condominiums in Miami and that now are responsible for like tens and tens and tens of thousands in retrofitting the buildings or just walking away.
Yeah, that's true. God almighty. I don't know. So, I was thinking, though, when I couldn't sleep last night, used to be, let's say 100 years ago, or a little more, if a monster storm like this was heading your way, you wouldn't know. Right? You wouldn't know. These things used to just hit people with the birds and the animals would sense it before humans had a clue, I think. You wouldn't know. And the amount of death and destruction, given these storms, if we didn't know in advance, one can only imagine. I mean, and since what happened with Helene, with places being devastated that never before had to worry about a hurricane. They're way, way, way inland in the mountains. They're going to worry about a hurricane? And now a lot of those people are dead, and we've been schooled in how to rethink.
And as we've said, none of those people have flood insurance. No. Why would they have flood insurance?
None of them did, because there was no reason to. Of course not. Wow. Just wow. Oh.
Well, I'm just saying this is a reason that everyone in this country, depending on where you live, even if it's inland but at the bottom of a hill, or near a sewer, you need to consider that where you didn't previously think flooding was an issue, if you're going to be in a place which for no good reason has dropped 6 inches of water in an afternoon, you're going to have a flood.
Yeah.
And if you're at the bottom of the hill, it's all going to be in your house. And so I suggest that each one of us go outside, look around, think of the worst case scenario, and then determine whether you need to look at adding some bit of that kind of coverage to your policy. If it's not a real great risk, I would assume that it wouldn't be all that expensive.
Well, if you live in a place like Pittsburgh with all these hills,
you should absolutely have it.
Because we are not, we've certainly seen a number of landslides, hills giving way, and houses going with it. Much like the folks who live in those big, beautiful homes overlooking the Pacific in California have found themselves in the water.
Or in the Outer Banks.
Yeah, the Outer Banks too. Right. Well, I mean, those homes are like practically, they've been asking for it for years. I used to vacation there, and I would look at those homes and think, give it up. They're doomed. I mean, you knew they were doomed. The water would have them. They're too close. There's this refusal to acknowledge that nature is the ultimate arbiter of whether or not that's a good idea, that house there, So,
yeah.
North Carolina, the legislature passed a law last year blocking the state from adopting any new building codes until 2031.
Well, again, I'm going to state that doesn't keep anybody who is rebuilding there from seeking out the proper way to build for future climates, and what's going to happen to you, and rebuilding properly. You'd be nuts not to. And probably the only way to get insurance is to prove that you did so.
Yeah. And get this, that law, by the way, that law made it harder for North Carolina to qualify for FEMA grants. FEMA does grants to fund construction that is more resilient. But they aren't.
Well, why should the government pay for something that is just going to get knocked down in the next event? They can't waste my taxpayers' money. They shouldn't give money.
No, they should not. So the Democratic governor of North Carolina, how the hell he ever got elected, I don't know, has estimated that North Carolina has lost something like $70 million that the feds would have given them in the last year. And he, of course, vetoed that nonsensical legislation saying they couldn't change the building codes until 2031. But of course, that veto was overridden.
Well, and they'll blame the Democratic administration for not giving them the money anyway. Well, they will.
God help us. Well, the thing is, if truth, the great headline in the Times today, the casualties in North Carolina include the truth. Because nothing matters anymore if truth is as malleable as it now is, or as, it's just astonishing. Once Republicans, including like J.D. Vance, fall in line and refuse to say that Trump lost the last election, a lie that big means that any lie can then be easily told. That's all they do now is traffic in lies. And millions of Americans are willing to choose. They'll take the lies over facts. because it validates their what they want to believe. I think we're in big trouble.
I just don't understand how people can put their grandchildren at such risk.
Yeah, you tell me.
For such short-term gain. I'm just flummoxed.
Yeah, me too. I don't think I've lived long, and I just gotten more and more bewildered. That's all. Just more and more bewildered by people. Astonishing. All right, well, that's what happens when I don't sleep all night.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
But I mean, I did spend all yesterday, every time I turned on anything or looked at anything, it was so horrific that I spent the day with tears just rolling down my face.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. When I couldn't sleep last night, I found myself humming Hatikva, the Israeli national anthem, which of all the national anthems I know is the most mournful sounding. It's not militaristic. It's not like, it's just this Hatikva.
It's a beautiful, haunting melody.
It's haunting, right? Which means it means the hope. Yeah, because that's often all we got. Okay.
Well, if that's what you found yourself singing, if that's what you found yourself singing in your bed last night, Lynn, I'm going to send you a little video of my granddaughter in her bed last night.
Okay.
And she's singing Freeze. That's in the little dance where they, you're jumping around and then they yell freeze.
Yeah. Well, that'll make me smile.
Singing.
Okay, do send.
Well, that'll make you smile. But lots of people are lying in their bed singing. That's the point. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Sue.
Okay. Bye.
Goodbye.
Hang in there.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm trying. Okay. Bye-bye. Yeah, guys, I am really just blown away that event marking the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, marking that sorrowful horror that our mayor, our county executive, and our member of Congress were nowhere to be seen. And I cannot tell you how that hurts and how that angers. I cannot begin to tell you.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.